All right, I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors.
It's already started.
Good reminder.
Joshua Basin Water District for Wednesday, August 16th at 6:30. Johnny, you want to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Termination of the quorum.
Madam President, all 5 directors are here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move that we approve the agenda.
I have one comment. On item number 7, Chris Palmer from the California Special Districts was scheduled to appear. We haven't heard from him. He may be delayed because of traffic. So you may, if he does show up while we're still in session, you may want to be able to move that.
Okay. Thank you. So with that, we have approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing no opposition, it's unanimous. We will move to item number 5, public comment. At this time, it's time set aside for public comment on any district-related matter not appearing on the agenda. Government code prohibits the board from taking action on these items, but they may be referred for future consideration. Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. Is there any public comment? Please go up to the microphone there and give us your name and where you're from.
My name is William Wynn, W-I-N-N. I have property in Joshua Tree on Cactus Drive. I currently reside in Fallbrook, California. I'm sorry I can't speak louder.
And unfortunately, that mic is for the video camera. It does not amplify. So.
Oh, okay. I'll try to speak louder. I'm calling because of an incident that I'll try to be brief. I called the water company because of a high water bill. The water bill was 5 times what it would be normally, almost 6 times greater, 52 cubic feet, or however that was run, 38,000 gallons of water. I personally checked my property. There's no leaking pipes. There's nothing going on. It was suggested that my leak was in a possibly water cooler line, which would be a 1/4-inch copper line. There is no way 38,000 gallons of water would go through a 1/4-inch copper line, even when it ran between the 2 read dates. So I don't know why I got such a high reading, but you know, I've heard it before. The water had to go through the meter, so we'll just get past that part. When I called your office, the manager was supposedly out of the office, and this was back in July. Then I called July 7th. I was told that she wouldn't be back until the 13th. So I expected a call back from your office about my water bill and what the new reading would be, since the meter readings are running 30 days in arrear for a leaking pipe in any residence. When you have to wait for 2 cycles to make that determination because you can't read the meter, something's wrong with that process. So I expected a call from your staff, somebody. I wish I knew the lady that I talked to. I don't. I didn't get her name, absent-minded or whatever, but I expected a call back from somebody. I waited until the 25th of July, and I sent a letter to you people using your flyer that came with the bill indicating service that's provided. And I circled a few things and made a few comments on the flyer and mailed it back with my bill. On August 2, I finally get a call from a lady in the office. I don't know her name. Again, I didn't get it. She said she recognized my voice and that she had previously talked to me, and that she had a record of it. I was incensed by that statement because I don't know what record she has. She didn't talk to me, and whatever record there might be has to be a falsified record, and I don't know why that would be. But I'm complaining about that, and I'm bringing it to her attention so that perhaps this board can address that issue. If somebody is going to call a customer, that should occur. I shouldn't have to make 2 or 3 calls trying to get some type of information. Anyway, that's the crux of my thing. I don't know why this has occurred, but there's other issues too that I'm sure everybody in this room is interested in. Why we back in 1976 had so much water in this district that if we used all of the water we could for 100 years, we would have an aquifer that was still full of water. Since that time, since I've been a property owner here since 1976, where'd all that water go? You know, we built a line from Joshua Tree to Yucca Valley so that they could expand. Perhaps that was where the water went, I don't know. Anyway, that's really all I want to say. I'm going to bring it to your attention. I don't know that you can do anything about it. If things are tight, somebody can't do the job in a timely fashion, they can use whatever excuse. But the fact is, I didn't get the call. I'm here. I've driven 120 miles to get here just to bring it to your attention. A phone call I didn't feel would do any good. Talking to the office, he goes into the same dead shoe. And I didn't want to go there, so that's why I'm here. Thank you for the time, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. And I suggest that you make talk to the manager, Kurt Sauer, who is our manager. And if you want to set up a telephone appointment, I'm sure he'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
I may do that. I'm 120 miles away, but I can try to do that.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to the consent calendar. Matters on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be enacted in a single motion without discussion. Any board member or member of the public may request that an item be removed from the consent calendar and acted on separately. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar, which is the draft minutes of the July 19, 2017 regular meeting of the Board of Directors?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Unanimous. And Chris Palmer's not here. Item number 8, approve Red Wine and Cheryl MOU. Recommend that the board accept and approve the proposed memorandum of agreement with Red Wine and Cheryl District Council. Mr. Sauer.
So the former partnership of Red Wine and Cheryl has ceased operations, and the attorneys have reorganized their firm. It's now Red Wine and Cheryl LLP. There are no changes to the billing rate nor the attorneys who work on matters for the district. And Mr. Granito is here and available at the board request if you want to ask him any questions. I've reviewed the proposal. It's basically the same. It's just part of a reorganization of the firm, and I recommend that we approve it. And if y'all want to ask Gil any specifics, he's here.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Gil? Rebecca? No. Bob? Gary?
No.
Tom?
Does Gil have anything you'd like to say?
No, I just,
No,
I love working for you. I hope I can continue to work for you.
I've already expressed my support for Gil when I was interviewed for this position a few months ago now, a couple of months ago. So that still stands. I did notice on page 1 of this thing, Gerald Egan's is also mentioned in here. In the time that I've been paying attention to the water district in most recent years, I think Jerry's been in here about 3 times to speak, and I've always found him very clarifying, very direct, and helpful. So I'm very pleased that we're going to hopefully continue our relationship with these folks.
we're equally pleased, and thank you for your kind words.
Yeah, we've had excellent service from Red Wine and Cheryl, Gil and Jerry, both of them. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve recommend that the board accept and approve the proposed memorandum of agreement with Red Wine and Cheryl District Council.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Congratulations. We look
Thank you
forward
very
to
much.
working with you again. It's been a pleasure. Here comes the fun stuff. Review third quarter financial report. We recommend the board receive for information the third quarter financial report was reviewed by the Finance Committee on 8/9/2017 and approve it. Susan?
Finance Committee want to just approve it?
I'm sorry, what?
Would the board like to just approve it since the Finance Committee has reviewed it?
That's the board decision. Would the board like to just approve it, or do you want her to go through all the numbers?
I trust the Finance Committee. I trust Susan, too.
Hearing that, do I have a motion to approve the
You won't hurt my feelings.
I just wanted to go on record that I did review the agenda packet and went through the laborious line-by-line look at everything, and looks fine to me, so.
Yeah, and I sat in for Bob on the Finance Committee, so I have reviewed it in detail.
And I too have looked at it, so I find it to be all in order.
And we'll be bringing back the fourth quarter in just about a month, so anytime now.
Goody.
Nevertheless, we appreciate your efforts.
Sure.
Okay, so we're receiving for information, and do I have a motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Was there any public comment on any of these?
Didn't see any hands.
I didn't ask. Anybody
Oh.
want to comment on either one of those issues? No. Okay. Item 10, review April, May 2017 check register. Recommend the board receive for information. It was reviewed by the Finance Committee on August 9th and approved. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I move that the board receive for information the April to May 2017 check registers, which has been reviewed by the Finance Committee and approved.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? You're shaking your head.
No, I am not opposed.
Oh, okay. Now we get to the meat of the meeting. Discussion of the mainline break of July 27th and 28th. Recommend the board receive as an informational debriefing. Mr. Sauer.
Okay, so on July 27th, in the evening of the 27th and on the 28th, the district experienced a significant incident caused by the cracking of a single 20-foot stick of 20-inch diameter transmission line at Center and Dixie. And there's been quite a bit of interest on the part of the community and the board on what all went on. So I want to talk to you about this, and I want to view it as a report to the board. This is not an after-accident review. This is not an after-accident report. I've been briefed by Kathleen, by Randy Little, Randy Mays, Jim Corbin, Susan, Keith, who were all here while I
Excuse me.
was in Vancouver. Ah, there's Randy.
Chris is here, so,
Oh, it was 7 o'clock, am I telling you wrong?
yeah, no, we start at 6:30.
My fault, my
Yeah, for a while.
apologies.
I think that in the interest of your time, if Mr. Sauer is amenable, we will go to you directly. You can breathe for a second,
Okay, no problem.
and then we'll go on with the mainline break after that. Okay, so we will, this is Chris Palmer of the California Special Districts Association, who wants to speak on the benefits of becoming a member of CSDA.
Yeah, so there's two things that Kurt asked me to speak about. Did you want me to talk about the Little Hoover Commission and an update on them? And
Maybe start with whichever way you want to go first.
okay, I'll start with the membership stuff first, get that out of the way, and then I can update you on the Little Hoover Commission. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity. My sincerest apologies for being late. I thought it was 7 o'clock, and that's on me. So my mistake. So anyway, I just want to, I know you guys have been a trial member with CSDA here for the last few months, and I know your GM went to one of our conferences out in Newport Beach and hopefully got some good information out of there. Basically, I just wanted to kind of let you know why CSDA is so great and why we would love to have you guys join our team and be a member. And there's really 3 main things that we focus on. And the first one is legislative advocacy. We have a team of lobbyists in Sacramento that our members have at their disposal. So any questions about any type of legislation that you have, they are available to help you connect you with your legislators, maybe committee members, anything legislatively advocacy-wise, we're there to help. Now, what makes us unique versus, say, Aqua or some of the other very focused state associations, we focus on legislation that is overarching, that impacts all special districts. Aqua, they focus on water, and that's what they do, and they do it great. We work with them. We caucus with all the state associations on probably every other month or so. So we get CSAC, we get League of Cities, we get Aqua. We all get into a room and they talk about legislation. And if it's a water-related bill, Aqua will take the lead. If it's could be something on human resources or infrastructure, revenue and taxation, those types of things we cover. So we cover a very wide spectrum of legislative issues that the other associations just, they like Aqua, they focus on water. So we kind of do the overarching things that impact our districts, especially when it comes to compliance issues and governance and transparency and all those types of legislative issues. We focus on all those. So that's our one thing, is we have a great legislative team. They're at your disposal. I'm a field coordinator for CSDA. I'm actually based in Orange County, so I'm local. That's why I'm able to come here and speak to you guys today. And so you have a liaison with CSDA. If you ever have a question about, who do I talk to about this? We have 27 employees, so you may not know kind of, which direction do I go in. I want to be that liaison for you, so I could be your direct contact and get you in touch with the proper people. Our second main focus is professional development. We have a ton of not only big conferences such as our annual conference, GM Summit. We have a conference just for board secretaries and clerks. We also have the Special District Leadership Academy, which you can earn certificates in transparency, districts of distinction, and all types of things that really can show your ratepayers and your customers, like, hey, we're going above and beyond, and we're taking education, we're bettering ourselves. And we also have a host of workshops that we host. We have webinars. A lot of them are on demand. So, for some of you that may not be able to get to a conference or a workshop, may be too far, or if you have to take your ethics training, those types of mandatory things, we actually have a lot of those educational programs available on demand, so you can watch them when it's convenient for you. And when you are a member of CSDA, everyone's a member. So every board member, every staff member has access to all the services that we provide. So professional development is our second biggest one. A third one is our value-added benefits. We have a host of business affiliates that offer discounts to our members, such as website design and hosting. We also have our CSDA Finance Corporation, which helps special districts with loan needs, even refis, and they're unique in that they understand special districts. Sometimes it's hard to get a loan for a capital improvement project from a normal bank. You just don't, it's hard to, you can't foreclose on a government agency. So our Finance Corporation really focuses on that. They get you guys. It's a consortium of different investment bankers and lawyers and people who really help out if you have financial needs, and anywhere ranging from $100,000 to $5 million. And I think last year alone we loaned out over $30 million. We also have the Special District Risk Management Agency, which is kind of our sister company, and they offer workers' comp, property liability insurance, all those types of things. Some of our members, especially our smaller members who just don't have the revenue, you become an SDRMA and you are a member and they're already saving like thousands of dollars on their insurance. which automatically really pays for the membership fee for CSDA. And I have some handouts there that I passed along, and it has kind of a breakdown of the things that we do legislatively, some of the things that we focus on versus Aqua, and some of those types of things. And also a list of all the other, we have 195 other water districts that are members of ours. They comprise probably 30% of our membership. So in addition to those value-added benefits, like I said, web hosting, financing, insurance, purchasing cards, all types of stuff. And I've included a couple sheets in there that list all those types of different benefits that you have. So that's kind of my pitch. That those are our three main areas of focus for us, or our members. We're about 1,100 members strong right now. We continue to grow, and our attendance numbers at our conferences have been going up and up and up over the last couple of years. And we want to be seen in the same light as counties and cities. Sometimes people they forget about special districts because, let's be honest, you guys are almost victims of your own success. You really, unless there's a problem, most people just wake up and their shower goes on, their toilet flushes, and their intramural games on a nice green field, and they don't have Zika virus. And so, so thank goodness we have all these special districts that are providing these essential life services. So I'd be happy to take any questions with regard to membership.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Not yet.
I have a question.
Yes.
Could you expand a little bit more on the professional development? I know I attended a 3-day seminar one day and then 2-day seminar for general managers, and it was excellent. Some of the better training I've had in the last many years. But there's also, you mentioned training for finance, and you have training for human resources, and what sort of training programs does your agency or organization offer for field folks?
Yeah, we have a lot of those. In fact, we just had our HR boot camp last week up in Northern California, and that is just a one-day workshop that deals nothing with human resources issues. So it's very tailored for HR managers and people that are in that field. We also had a finance workshop all day that taught you about how to, and we also published actually a financial guidelines booklet, which I'd be happy to get a copy of for you, that kind of goes over, should I finance or should I pay as I go? It talks about, do I need to put a tax measure on the ballot? I believe it was the Apple Valley Fire Protection District just did this. I believe it was last year that they got a tax passed. So they go over kind of the pros and cons of those types of things in finance, and also basic bookkeeping and those types of things. So we do have workshops geared specifically for those disciplines that you're talking about. And then we also, like I said, we probably have over 50 on-demand webinars that cover a wide range of educational opportunities, from understanding the Brown Act, which most of us should know, right? But there's some new board members may not know all the ins and outs of that. So we host those, and those are just a sample of some of them. And then you talk about the GM Summit. And Kurt can tell you that's a seminar and conference focused just on GMs. No board members are allowed, no offense to board members, but it's great for all the GMs to kind of get together and share ideas. They don't have board members they have to take care of and manage. They can just kind of focus on, okay, this is our issue. What have you done? And it's a great collaboration, sharing of experiences and ideas with other districts, because it's probably been done already, right? There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And we also have another benefit that we have is called Listserv, and it's an email-based subscription for CSDA members, and we have over 300 districts that subscribe to this. So people will go on there and like, hey, I need an RFP for an engineering firm. How do I do that? And then you'll see people chime in from all over the state giving samples of, hey, this is what we used. And we also have a policy library, policy manual library that you have access to. So if you don't have a policy, lately we've been getting a lot of requests for social media a policy for board members and for the staff. It's kind of a unique new thing that we have to deal with and work with. So different districts are doing different things, but listserv's a great tool for sharing information, and so that's one of the other things. But to really get back to your point, Kurt, yes, we have lots of different workshops that fit all these disciplines that you're talking about, from HR to finance to Brown Act understanding to management tips and all kinds of things. So quite a library of that.
Thank you.
Is this a
Yes.
comment time,
For
too?
the benefit of the filming, we all know the CSDA.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Chris Palmer. I'm the Public Affairs Field Coordinator for the California Special Districts Association. And a very very long title, so. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions from the board?
I have a comment. Can I make a comment? I'm the new guy up here, and one of the things that I've been using to learn about what's going on with water is this booklet right here. It's on LAFCO's website, Local Agency Formation Commission. They're the ones that certify that we can exist. And I noticed up at the top here, it also says up here CSDA on here. So these folks published this thing. I believe it's on your website too.
Yeah, the Special District Leadership Foundation is actually our 501c3 foundation of CSDA. And that was, and I can get into a little bit of Little Hoover Commission, but we created that kind of in lieu of the last report that they did on special districts.
So there's an inference there that these real people, these LAFCO folks, have a relationship with these folks, which, in other words, these guys don't come out of nowhere. I'm seeing that. And in the acknowledgments for the production of this thing, we see the name Kimberly Cox. Well, Kimberly Cox is currently the president of the Mojave Water Agency, which is a place where Joshua Basin Water District buys its water. And so I'm just wanting to point out, there's cost issues here and stuff that have to be discussed, but and the level of services or all these details and stuff. I just wanted to point out that these folks have not just come out of the woodwork. They are for real, and we just have to decide sometime down the road, I guess, because this is just for discussion. We just have to decide if they're relevant to what we're doing here, which I've got a feeling I know what the answer to that is. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I thought we were members. It was a trial membership?
It's a trial membership.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we do that so you guys can get a taste of what we do.
I just say that the membership list here is pretty impressive and it's pretty expansive. It goes from one end of the state to the other.
Yes.
So it's, and I'm sure we'll be seeing this at probably the Finance Committee.
Well, and when I first came on this board, which has been, what, 8 or 9 years ago now, every board member went to the training that those people did the 3 weekends.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that has now been incorporated into you, I understand.
Correct.
And I think every board member needs to, there's a section on governance, finance, and I've forgotten what the third one is. But it really, you walk out of there knowing what your role is as a board member and what your responsibilities are. I think it is invaluable. And I have been pushing that every board member should go to that as soon as possible, because some of, it's really important.
Yeah, and I participate. I actually have my certificate from the Special District Leadership Academy,
Yes.
and that way I know what you guys have to go through. And it's a fantastic program, and I hear the same comments from other board members, especially ones that haven't been, they just are new to maybe special districts and don't know how every little thing works.
Yep.
And it's a great education. And touching your point, yeah, we've been around for 50 years, so we're celebrating our 50-year anniversary in 2019. So that'll be a big year for us.
Thank you. Is there anything from the public before we thank Chris? Yes, sir.
I have one question. You mentioned, in all due respect, you mentioned loans.
Yes.
Do you, in some way, are you inferring that you give a loan that's comparative with banking, or you give a better rate? What is the current rate that you're providing?
Yeah, the rate depends on the district and their finances, but it's generally, definitely a lower rate than what a bank would offer, because they focus just on special districts, and that's all they finance.
Because this district, I'm sure, needs money, and spending money just throwing it into the wind probably isn't real wise. You may need the training, but considering the other hurdles you have to jump, maybe grasping this might not be the best thing in the world, because getting a loan from somebody as this, even though they have statewide contacts, may not be in your best interest. I would also say that when it comes to all the seminars and other meetings that they provide, that's probably not free, although I don't know that to be a fact. Are those free?
No, they're not free.
Okay,
They're not
so
free.
it costs you members money to attend these various meetings. If the education that you're getting is sufficient in 1 day or 2 days, that's not much of a presentation. Consider your own high school activity took, I mean, the years it took. You know, if you go to college, it took 4 years. I don't know that a 2-day or a 1-day seminar gives you that. I was in law enforcement for 37 years. I went to a lot of seminars, and yeah, they were valuable, but costly. But when it comes time to look at the bottom line, sometimes you have to put things aside that you could use for things that you need to fill. And the money is not real good right now, even for this district. Thank you for the time.
Sure. And we're sensitive to these costs. In fact, we actually have a scholarship program available for districts that have revenues under 10 million, and I believe your revenues are probably under 10 million. Yes. There's scholarships available that actually pay all the registration fees and those types of things, so your only cost will be travel, and sometimes those go unclaimed, and there is opportunity there. But I certainly understand your point of finance. In fact, we are having a seminar workshop on understanding the Brown Act in Palm Springs on September 6th. $25. It includes lunch, and it's all day. I've been to that one a few times. The instructor is very, very well versed. He's a board member for a special district. David Aranda, you may have heard of him. So he does a lot of these. So for $25, you guys don't have to get a hotel. Those are just some of the opportunities, and part of my job is to let CSDA in Sacramento know, like, hey, there's a lot of districts in this area. They probably can't afford to fly to Sacramento or go to San Diego, but maybe we can bring stuff closer so we can keep your costs down.
Are you implying that most of these seminars are $25?
No, but a handful, some of them are.
What would be the highest?
Annual conference, I believe it's, I don't know, $400 to $500, I believe, for a 4-day conference. Again, there's scholarships available for that stuff, but yeah, there's no guarantee.
Okay. Chris, thank you very, very much.
No problem.
Sorry you had to come up through that mess down in Morongo.
So,
do you need something first?
Yeah, are you prepared to speak to the Hoover Commission?
Sure, I can give you a brief update. I don't want to take everyone's time. I'll try to be very brief.
Bring it on.
We've been, well, first of all, let me start. The Little Hoover Commission, for those of you who may not know, it's an independent state oversight commission that was created in 1962. It is not a legislative body. They do not have legislative power. But their commission is appointed of 5 citizen members appointed by the governor, 4 citizen members appointed by the legislature, and then you have 2 state senators and then 2 state assembly members. Assemblymember Chad Mays is actually a member of the Little Hoover Commission. So although it doesn't have teeth per se, their recommendations, since you have legislators on their commission, can take that and introduce it. So let me give you a little history. Back in 2000, the Little Hoover Commission did a report on special districts, and it was titled Relics of the Past, Resources for the Future. And they were very concerned about, they felt that special districts, no one knew about them, and they weren't being transparent. Why do some of these districts have such large reserves? What's LAFCO's role in this? So they had all these different things. And so CSDA responded to that, and that's how the Special District Leadership Foundation was founded, to do this, to help elevate the education level of special district board members and staff to be better at these transparency things. So fast forward to last August, almost a year ago, the commission decided to review what they did in 2000, and their priorities were a little different. Their main 3, they were concerned about climate change and how special districts are adapting to climate change. The second was healthcare districts. Now, I don't believe there's any healthcare districts. Is there one locally here?
Yeah.
Now, it's very unique, the healthcare districts, because you have some healthcare districts that have hospitals, and then you have other healthcare districts that do not have hospitals. And so the commission was like, if you're a healthcare district, why don't you have a hospital? And they just didn't really understand what those healthcare districts provided as far as preventative medication and medicine, and senior programs and kids programs and dietary, all these like preventative healthcare programs that are funded by their local voters. So it's been a process educating this commission. So they met in August. We've been involved in every meeting, every step of the way. Then they had another meeting in October, another working group in November, one in February of this year. Then April, they had what we thought was going to be their final meeting with their final recommendations. And then it just blew up. We had two commissioners that were adamant that special districts shouldn't exist and they should be run by counties and cities. And it was very interesting because one of the commissioners who first spoke of this he lives in San Francisco, so he's as far left as you can get. And he doesn't know special districts because they don't really service the city itself. And he's more of a big government kind of person, and he's like, counties and cities should do that. So that was his recommendation. Then we had a gentleman out of San Diego who is as far right as they come, and all government's bad government, to his opinion. And his big idea was that special districts should have a 10-year sunset clause, and that every 10 years, a special district would have to go to their voters to reauthorize the special district. Now, imagine the problems with not only employee retention, but try to get any financing when you're at this mercy of every 10 years. So, fortunately, that idea went up in flames. And but because of, and this commissioner also said, I want to see radical, extreme changes to special districts. And those are his words, radical and extreme. His ideas weren't met with a lot of love, and he actually resigned the next week, so which was very, very interesting. So this all happened in April. So we addressed all these concerns. CSDA wrote a 6-page letter saying, this, and this. It's been just an education process the whole 12 months we've been doing this, just educating the commissioners on what special districts do. And sadly, even some legislators don't really know what special districts do. So it's taken really a year to really educate. Now, I feel, and CSDA feels, where we were a year ago and where we are now are two different places. They were talking about some really extreme stuff, such as the sunset date. Now it's very, very minor. They're looking at governance issues, website transparency issues, so stuff as special districts that I think we can adapt to, and it's not as overreaching, and it's not going to impose a whole bunch of new regulations and those types of things. So June 22nd was the last meeting. We were there. We've been getting districts to come to these commission hearings, providing testimony to the commissioners about their districts from all over the state, basically just saying, hey, this is what we do and why we do it. And we have reserves because we have these things called capital improvement projects that we have, and those things take decades to do. So we're able to actually really shift the conversation. And so we feel pretty good about things. Now, their next meeting is actually a week from tomorrow. It's going to be August 24th. We will be there. I will make sure that your staff gets all the information that we have, and we'll make sure that the board gets all the information, because we'll provide a summary of what happened, what could happen in the future, those types of things. That's a real quick snapshot of what we've been doing. I can just assure you that we've been there every step of the way, and I think we really did turn the boat around, because where they were going was not a place special districts wanted to go. And we were able to actually overcome a lot of those hurdles and get them kind of, and Pedro Nava, who's the chairman of the commission, he's from Santa Barbara, and he's a big special district fan. So he gets how important they are. He understands their value to the communities. And so he's been really, kind of leading the ones who didn't know on board. So we're looking forward to the report next week. And again, I'll be able to get you more information after that meeting next week. So in the interest of time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on the Brown Act?
Oh, just thank you very much. As because our legal counsel, Gil Granito, you brought this up a couple of years ago about the Little Hoover Commission, and they were
periodically when these meetings occurred, I let the board know they're taking place.
Right.
And you've identified each step perfectly.
Oh, thank you,
And
thank
this
you.
report is coming out probably September or shortly?
Yeah, well, we should see the staff report at next week's meeting, and hopefully they will vote on it, and hopefully we'll be done with this. Now, we said that back in April too, but I think we alleviated the major concerns from that April meeting at the June meeting.
Chris, did you assume the position that Arlene Schaefer used to occupy?
No, Arlene's our board member, so I'm
Okay.
actually a staff member.
Okay.
Yeah, she's one of our board members.
I know Arlene, yeah.
Yeah, she's the secretary, she's just reelected.
Our first general counsel to Laguna Beach and El Toro.
Oh, okay, yeah, I grew up there, so that's home for me.
Great.
I'm glad to hear she's still.
Anything else for the board?
She did great.
Well, thank you very much
Staff?
for taking this up.
Oh, no, I'm happy to.
Public? Chris, thank you. We really
Very
appreciate
welcome.
it. It was an excellent report, and I look forward to all of our board members going to the different conferences and learning all the things you need to know.
And I'll get you the information for the September 6th workshop, and again, that would probably be a really good one, and the cost is right, and you don't need a hotel. So I'll leave some cards with me. If you guys have any questions when you're driving home or later, feel free to email me or call me on my cell phone. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, now we'll go back to the mainline break. Mr. Sauer.
Okay, so, as I was saying, I want to give this report to the board and try and explain what all went on, but I don't want to just talk about the spill, or, excuse me, see?
Yes.
I'm not supposed to kick this. Yeah, I'm certainly not going to talk about the BP oil spill, about the break and the leak that occurred. But it's more of a leak incident. And there is much more to this than just repairing the main line, okay? And I'm going to mention some things where we can improve. I'm going to mention some things where we did very well. I don't want us to get into a discussion on, well, why didn't you do this, and why didn't you do that? We're still talking, we're still debriefing, we're still learning, and we're still improving. And we're very proud, and I'm very proud of the crew, the entire staff. So let me just set the stage for this event. Now, this is not a short report. Okay, so let me just set the stage. July 27th was a Thursday, and most personnel had completed a regular 9-hour shift. For the field staff, they began work at 6 o'clock in the morning, meaning they started their day at home at about 5 or even 4 o'clock in the morning so they could take care of chores around their homestead before they came to work. Distribution folks had spent the day in 100-degree plus heat, replacing 2 service lines which ran under pavement. One production staff had spent 8.5 hours conducting tests on well 14 and transporting those samples to the lab in San Bernardino County. The other had completed a weekly well run and repaired the swamp cooler at well 10, as well as catching up on data entry for our SEM system and well runs for the past week because he had been on vacation, and that's part of his job. He also conducted SCADA monitoring because Randy Little was off. Randy Little was off that day, undergoing emergency surgery, including a bone graft to his gums, returning home at 5:15 p.m. Office staff had completed their usual duties, and Val had been in the field all day doing service orders. The high that day was 106. At 5:50 p.m. on Thursday night, Bill, who was on call, decided he'd look at SCADA one last time before he went to bed, because he gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning. He observed the C1 and C2 and B and C3 tanks precipitously dropping in volume. The rate of water loss could only mean that there was a significant leak. At 5:55, he confirmed his analysis in consultation with Randy Little, who was home recovering from surgery. Randy Little made plans to respond to the incident as well, but was forcefully dissuaded from responding because of his medical condition. I won't tell you exactly what Bill told him, but he stayed home. He remained at home and throughout the night continued to monitor the entire system while Bill focused on SCADA and the leak in question. At approximately 6 p.m., Bill notified Kenny, who was on call, of a leak and told him to get hold of all distribution personnel due to the significance of the leak. There was a leak, but its location at this time was unknown. That was at 6 p.m. 5:50 was noticed by Bill. Between 6:36 and 6:53, there were 8 calls received by customers on the answering service, all of them mentioning a loss in water pressure or being out of water. None of them reported where the leak was. It wasn't until 6:54 that a reporting party called with a report that the leak was at Dixie and Center. And I want to take a moment for the public and look at this message that we received from our answering service. So you can see that it was received at 6:54 p.m. Maybe I said 6:56. There was a first name, but we've redacted that. And the last name, the reporting party stated, "You don't need it." They were asked for their telephone number. They stated, "You don't need it." They were asked for their address. They stated, "Doesn't matter." "What are you calling about?" "There's a major water leak at Dixie and Center." So that was the first report of where the water break was, okay? But what's important for the public to understand is whether it's a leak, whether it's a missing party in the park, whether it's a report of a fire, all of your responding agencies need to have contact information so that they can call you back. You never know if we can get some additional information from you, whether or not that will help. And in this particular case, we can argue, hey, I said it was at Center and Dixie, what more do you need? There could have been a need to contact this reporting party. There could have been a need on the part of the EMS response, on the part of the sheriffs, on the part of fire, on the part of search and rescue. So anybody in the public that is going to report to your agencies about an emergent situation, please take the time to give the full information so we can find you. It's something that has bothered search and rescue and the National Park Service, sometimes with detrimental effect, for years. And I'm sure that it goes on in the county. So I'm just asking the public, if you're going to call in, we really appreciate you calling in because it gives us information, but we need to be able to contact you at times. So please provide complete information. Okay, so during the initial few hours of the event, the on-call phone received many calls from the answering service. Many of these calls were not answered. Messages were left and we did not listen to them because the call-out phone was described as blowing up due to the call volume. In addition to that, the on-call person was also using the same phone to talk to other responding personnel, which leads us to looking at what are our resources and are we adequately covering an emergency situation? Is there a better way to communicate? Okay, so Jim's report states, I was contacted on Thursday evening around 1800 to 1830 by Bill Klein. And by the way, all the times in this little report are approximate. People are responding, and they're not necessarily taking the time to look at their watch and see that it's 17 hours. Right? So they're approximate. I was contacted by Bill Klein by phone. He stated, we have a major leak in our draining tanks. We need all hands on deck. My first question was where and who has he contacted? Bill said he did not know where the leak was, but he had spoken with Scott Carpenter, who was at the shop. Scott Carpenter is our newest employee. He's been working for us for about 2 months. This was his first night of being on call. This was not a service line leak, right? He was at the shop. Jim immediately left home, and while en route to look for the leak, he called Scott, who was on call. He was getting so many calls from the answering service lines that they were busy. I called Kenny, Dan, and Jeremiah, and informed them that we may have a large leak and directed them to turn radios on and head to the shop. I drove directly to the area of our district that had the most potential for a large leak. There are lots of comms going on between myself, Bill, Randy Little, and the other staff. Since we at that point did not know of a report of anyone seeing water, I had all crews spread out and drive the district to look for water. So let's go to the next one, but don't, uh-oh. Okay, so at 8 p.m. I located a large leak in a remote part of Center, cross street of Dixie. I videoed the leak and called in the troops. Can we show this video?
Sure can.
Look quickly. That's Jim videoing the leak. Jim spent about 10 seconds out of the car, videoed it, got back in the car. So I called in the troops. Almost immediately, all staff were at the site. So that's 6 distribution people and Bill Klein. Randy's at home, Steve Corbin's at home. Randy Little's at home. First step was to start a game plan, safety first. We coned off the area. It's worth noting this remote area had basically one residence in front of the leak. The water was rushing into the desert towards the A1 tank, and no one would see water to report. Next slide. So this is just a shot of our SCADA screen. It's what Bill is looking at. This is not a SCADA class. It's sort of intentionally not readable unless you get real close. But you can see that blue line. Okay, that's, Randy, that's just one well, right?
All the wells are...
Okay. Randy will now give you a SCADA lesson.
All right, so here we're going to have one of our tank sites here. This is the trend here at C3. And so around 6 o'clock that evening, literally our C3 reservoir dropped 12 feet in approximately 2 hours. So, next slide. Or go back. Okay.
Go back.
Go back. Okay. So ultimately, as soon as that dip occurred, our wells started kicking on with a soft start protocol, which 5 minutes later would kick on the well, and then roughly 15 minutes later, the second well kicked on to respond in the demand. So our C3 reservoir got down to approximately 2 feet, and we literally went up and valved off the tank. If it would have drained completely, it would have been a whole series of other regulations we would have had to have gone through in order to bring it back online and into service. So, so our guys did a fantastic job. They responded very quickly, and that's what you're kind of seeing through this trend. 12 feet in literally 2 hours. It was significant leak. And I would point out here too that most of our crews are generally working on anywhere from 6-inch to 12-inch main lines. This particular main was 20 inches in diameter and was connected to a 5 million gallon reservoir. So it was a very complex situation, and so they did a remarkable job.
Thanks, Randy. So Jim continued to report that we had Bill monitoring the reservoirs and debated on whether we should consider valving off more reservoirs. His crew immediately started to locate system valves to shut down the leak. Bill drove to the C3 and C2B tanks and closed them off to preserve water. For various reasons, the system was functioning properly, but it didn't record the pressure differential, so he had to go manually shut them down. Jim's crews broke into 2-man crews and himself, looked at the map books, started near the leak and worked our way both north and south of the leak and on center to locate valves. This process took several hours as our map books show many different valves, connections, and laterals connected to or adjacent to the 20-inch line. Later, we'll show you the map of the district. So when we started to get what we thought was a good shutdown, sent 2 people back to the shop to retrieve both backhoes and only three trash pumps, large volume pumps. So let's go to the next slide. We installed all of our 3 mud pumps into the hole, used the backhoes, and started to bail out water. After some time, it did not appear that we were making progress. At this point, I was confident we had a good shutdown, and Jeremiah and Dan believed that the water was just draining down. We actually drained 3 miles of pipe before we got everything shut down. That's how large the leak was. Finally, they noticed, then they spoke with Bill, and he turned one of the wells back on. That didn't increase the flow of the leak, which indicated that we had a good shutdown. And they continued to bail and pump for hours. So they're out there now at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, working in these conditions. There was also an 8-inch line in proximity to the 20-inch line, so they had to make sure that they weren't digging in such a way that they would damage the 8-inch line. The 20-inch line was installed in 2002. It's a polyvinyl chloride pipe. Should have a 50-year lifespan. This is the second time that this pipe has had a failure. The first one, one of our employees was doing a hot tap for a service, and we believed that because the line was under the actual main line, not the water, the actual main line was under enough pressure that when he drilled into the pipe, it exploded. He was knocked into the trench, and it took 2 other employees to pull him out, otherwise he would have drowned. This one is, I don't know the distance, but one of the theories we have, and we have not confirmed any reasons that this thing is, why this leak occurred, and Sarah, I'd be more than willing to talk to you about that after, because I don't want the public to say, oh, the whole line has failed. May have been installation, but we are also in contact with the company that made the pipe, and we're in discussions on how they could come and test it. It's been in the ground for 15 years, okay? So the warranty on the installation is 1 year. The warranty on the pipe is something else that we're still looking at, okay? Okay, so let's go to the next. After a considerable amount of time, after we dewatered and excavated, making sure to not bump into the 8-inch pipe, we were able to expose this pipe. And it literally cracked and splintered at several locations. Now, when I first looked at this picture, it looked to me like Bill had a little pry pole and he was bending the pipe out, right? That's not true. The center part of the pipe actually collapsed in at this particular section of the 20-foot section, okay? So this part of that stick of pipe fell in. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. After the pipe had been cut in half, and I'll get back to that in a minute, you can see we didn't break the pipe apart. That's what they pulled out of the hole, right? That's why we had such a significant leak. That pipe section failed. Now, whether it failed because it was under pressure from lack of proper installation, whether it failed because the pipe failed, whether some big truck drove over it and happened to be really heavy and pushed against a rock and it punched a hole in the pipe, we don't know, right? But we had a catastrophic failure of this particular section of pipe. So we had 3 miles of main line. We have 3 miles of main line that's 20 inches in diameter. And I was also going to say, as I talk about this, Kathleen, Susan, Keith, Randy, brief me, and if I'm missing anything and you think it's pertinent, add it. Just say, Kurt, you don't even have to raise your hand. Okay, so we've got one section of pipe that's in need of repair. Guess how many sections of 20-inch pipe we have? This is an easy one. One. Right? Now, if this section of pipe had somehow been 2 sections of pipe, or 3 sections of pipe, we did not have enough inventory of 20-inch pipe. Another example of the lack of redundancy in this district because of lack of funds that have been sent towards backup. Just like the Ed booster, when we had 4 booster pumps blown out by lightning, we had no booster pumps that fit that. Okay? Just like the K zone pneumatic station with the 3 pumps that were life consistent, or life expectancy of 5 to 7 years, and they'd been working for 22 years, we had no backup booster pumps. So it's yet another example of why we need to put some money in towards. So we replaced that with the existing pipe that we have, which had been laying in the sun for 3 to 5 years, because we have never built a pipe storage facility that's in the shade. So that will be going on the budget someplace, right? It's been asked for, but it's never been funded. Well, let me say that. It's within the budget that we have adequately been given, we haven't made a place for it, so we're going to make a place for it. Okay. So none of the 3 surrounding water districts use 20-inch pipe. So we couldn't get it readily from them. Additional pipe was ordered on the morning of July 28th. So on Friday, July 28th at approximately 4:30 in the morning, Randy Mays was contacted and informed of the incident. He responded to the office while informing Keith and Susan of the situation. He also called PIO Kathleen Radnich. As additional information was received, it was apparent that the incident was not just a broken pipe, but the situation indicated that some 40% of the district customers could possibly be without water if the original repair did not hold. Randy activated our Emergency Operations Center. Marina West and 2 crews were notified, and they arrived at approximately 5 p.m. on site. The 29 Palms water staff was on standby, approved by Ray Kolish. The entire field staff at this time had been awake for 24 hours with little rest, and they had worked from 6 in the morning until 3:30, and then they came back in at 7 p.m. and had worked until 6 a.m. It was now Friday. Office staff scheduled to work included Keith, Val, Ann, Autumn, and Beverly and Lisa. Susan, Sarah, Gail, Peggy were scheduled off. By 10 a.m., Susan and Sarah had arrived back at the office. The first news release of a significant leak was issued at approximately 6:50. Radio station KZDZ 107 had a report out on the 7:05 news. Both radio stations and the newspaper did an excellent job of accurately reporting the leak, and later they did an excellent job of accurately reporting the boil order, which will get to public interpretation of news releases. Field crew continued to work on fixing the leak, chlorinating the line, slowly reopening the valves, and bleeding off air in the system. Crews were released from 1100 hours until, from 11 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. After returning equipment to the shop and ensuring that the equipment was prepared in case there were other leaks. Most field personnel had now been up approximately 31 hours with limited or no sleep. At 9:40, the precautionary boil order. Let's go to the next slide. You can't really see Kenny's face real well, but this is about hour 26. And we've got folks taking turns running heavy equipment with 26 hours since they woke up and X number of hours of actually being on the leak. Okay? They responded immediately. Many of them brought no food. We got food out to them at about 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay? Beverly and Sarah took food out to them. if you could blow that up, which we're not going to do, because Kenny would be embarrassed. He looks pretty fatigued, okay? So now we're talking about safety, significant safety issues, okay? Okay, so I want to talk about, and let's go to the next slide. So now, see, this is the office. Nothing ever happens here. This is the reason I wanted to talk about the leak incident, not just the leak, okay? Because now we're dealing with customers, radio news, Division of Drinking Water, public health, etc., okay? So I mentioned that Randy had activated the Emergency Operations Center. We contacted the Office of Emergency Services with the county. Randy contacted the Division of Drinking Water. The Division of Drinking Water made the determination that a precautionary boil order would need to be put in place. 2 successive days of sampling would need to be taken before the order could be lifted. Samples were taken on Friday at approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon by Steve Corbin and given to a courier that we had arranged. There was a courier on Wednesday and Friday. And they took the first sample to the San Bernardino lab location. The precautionary boil order was completed, approved by Division of Drinking Water, and released at approximately 11 a.m. Okay, that's an hour and 15 minutes after the Division of Drinking Water informed us that they wanted a boil order, precautionary boil order. Pretty phenomenal work. The PIO contacted the radio stations as well as the hospital. Staff contacted all of the restaurants in town. Division of Drinking Water requested a map of the area affected by the leak and reports of water outages or losses. Keith prepared that map on Friday. Next slide. Here's a map of our district. The light green in the middle of it is the C zone. Okay, that's the zone that was affected by this leak. Now, everything except A zone and B zone towards the east, they're served by different wells. They're not on the main system. So everything else was potentially affected if this repair didn't hold. Okay. Next slide.
Kurt, what are the streets? I mean, what?
Well, see the red star? That's where the leak was. That's on Center.
That's below Golden.
Oh, well, it's what, east or west of Golden, and Dixie is north or south of Golden.
I think it's south of Golden.
Okay, I'm not sure. So the highway is right down sort of towards the bottom. Okay. So these green triangles, or diamonds, or whatever they are the reports that we had of low water pressure or being out of water. Okay, these are the maps that we presented to Division of Drinking Water. So phone calls from the public. From 7 p.m. on Thursday to 7:30 in the evening on Friday, from 7 p.m. on Thursday night to 7:30 in the morning on Friday, approximately 80 calls were received by the answering system. Staff immediately began returning these calls when they came in on Friday. But the phone continued to ring with further inquiries. Keith reprogrammed the phones so that the boil order message could be put on front of the message that you get when you call. And he also reprogrammed it so that 3 additional phones could take direct phone calls. And instead of having just 2 customer service people, we had Lisa, Autumn, Keith, Sarah,
Gail,
and Gail taking phone calls from the public, and Beverly, and returning the calls as quickly as we could. We also, Anne, using software included in our encode system in version 10, didn't exist until we upgraded just 9 months ago. Anne was able to take our encode system and develop an automated notification robocall. To all of our customers, approximately 5,400 active and inactive. 3,099 customers received the automated call directly or had messages left on their phone. 960 customers have either never given us a phone number or have failed to update their phone numbers over the years. They never got the call. 444 customers received the call, but hearing that it was a recorded message, hung up. So they never received the full information. 769 customers did not answer their phone and apparently do not have voicemail turned on. So some 2,000 customers, and there's a few other reasons in there, but some 2,000 customers we tried to contact, but we don't have phone numbers, they're not current phone numbers, they didn't answer the phone, etc. Okay, then we also went to the OES Emergency Advisory System, and Kathleen tried contacting the emergency services number, and it was busy. So she used a back door and contacted Zach Mullenix of County Fire, who was County Fire's OES liaison. And with his assistance, they developed a notification system for the entire Morongo Basin. While not specifically targeted to Joshua Basin Water District, this is apparently the first time, and I say apparently because we're still looking into it, it's the first time that the county has developed this emergency advisory system, notification system for our area. Kathleen worked with them, and now this EAS system can be utilized throughout the Morongo Basin, including 29, Joshua Tree, High Desert, and Bighorn. And we'll continue to work with the county and the other water districts on refining that. So on July 28th, Friday night at 5:05 p.m., Randy received a call from Environmental Health Services. They asked if the district had reached out to the local restaurants. We indicated we already had, as well as the High Desert Medical Center. Additionally, Joshua Tree residents received a robocall from our customer account contact list, as well as the call from the Office of Emergency Services. And the Environmental Health Services expressed their appreciation for the district's efforts. Later in the afternoon, we received information that the Quail Springs apartment manager had been notified, but was not notifying his tenants. So, I'm not sure who on staff.
Kathleen and Sarah.
Kathleen and Sarah created a precautionary boil water notice door hanger, which I wish I had the originals, but I think somebody named Kurt recycled them. And they went over to Quail Springs apartment after dark and hung every one of the door knobs.
Over 70.
Over 70 of them. So let's go back to the boil order activity on Saturday, July 29th. The second set of samples was taken Saturday a.m. by Bill Klein. And he then transported them to the lab because there's no courier service. The lab closes at 11:30 on Saturdays. While he was delivering the samples, the Division of Drinking Water called the office. Randy, Susan, Ann, and Keith were working on Saturday. We'd kept the office open in case people wanted to call or come in. At 11:15, Randy was advised by the Division of Drinking Water that they looked at the maps that we had provided them, and they wanted a third set of samples at 2 additional locations. Randy mentioned to them that the lab closed at 11:30. They said, "We want the samples, and unless we get them today, the boil order will be extended for 3 days." So Randy called the lab, made arrangements for the lab to stay open until 3 o'clock. Bill was coming back up the hill. He and Randy talked on the phone about where they're going to take the samples. Bill drove directly to the sample sites, took them, met Randy, handed off the samples, and Randy then drove down to the lab in San Bernardino County. He got there 15 minutes before they closed. Office personnel stayed in the office until noon to handle calls and walk-ins, and due to the limited volume, the offices were closed at 12 o'clock. On Sunday, July 30th, staff on duty was Randy, Susan, Keith, Ann, and Kathleen was working remotely because we were expecting to hear that the boil order could be lifted. At approximately 1 p.m. on Sunday, Division of Drinking Water approved the lifting of the boil order. Kathleen released the press releases, Keith changed the messaging on the phones, Susan called the restaurants, and Ann sent out another automated notification. And that was when everybody went home and the incident was over, except now we have all the paperwork. So that's an overview of what went on. It wasn't just a broken pipe. It was an entire team effort. People working 31 hours after they've gotten up. People working through the night. People working on their days off. And one of the primary lessons that we learned is that even though for years this water district has been encouraging all of our customers to have an emergency supply of water, we have emphasized the great shakeout. We have talked about being prepared. Most of the people do not have their emergency supply of water, nor do they have an emergency supply of food. And we will continue to push that information out. In fact, let me just mention to the public that the Morongo Basin First Responders meeting, which is a quarterly meeting, they met today. We were out at where were we? Desert View, Bighorn Desert View, doing some emergency response training with 29 Palms, High Desert, Bighorn, taught by Gary Sturdivant. So this is a reminder to all of us that there is a community preparedness fair being held on Saturday, October 14th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the Tractor Supply parking lot. I would recommend that the public might want to go to the Morongo Basin Community Preparedness Fair and learn about what they need to get, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when the next event occurs. And as those of you that were able to attend the Basin-wide Foundation saw, if there is a 7.8 earthquake on the San Andreas Fault, it will be weeks before supplies are coming into this basin. So with that, if there's anything else from my dedicated crew that you want to throw in.
I would just like to make the comment that Kurt left on an airplane for vacation 2 hours before this occurred, and he was gone the entire week. And I am so impressed with what the staff did and how well they managed. They were really absolutely...
They're fantastic.
I was notified.
Very impressive.
I was notified of the leak while I was standing in line to get on the plane. And Randy said, "No, we got this covered."
Yep, pretty amazing.
And you know, Kurt, there was a 6-hour power failure during the boil order as well. So
Yeah.
it was a fun week.
Yeah. And that's
Good
just,
practice. Yeah.
it's good practice because
Yeah.
we live in earthquake country.
Oh my gosh, thank you, everybody. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Great job.
Harry, you want to mention this Friday?
Gary Daigneault has recently returned from, I guess, vacation. He was in Alaska. And Gary Sturdivant and I have been invited by him to appear on his Up Close show
Oh.
at 10 a.m. to talk about emergency preparedness.
Good.
Great. All right. We'll try and get the word out to all our friends and neighbors. Or Rebecca will put it on Facebook.
Definitely will. Josh,
Thank you,
community
thank you,
connection.
thank you, thank you. Thank you to everybody. And, great report, Kurt. Thank you. And I presume you had a little bit of help from your crack staff.
That's right.
All right. Any questions before we go on? Yes, Johnny.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
My name is Johnny Painter. I live up on Copper Mountain Mesa. My background is 22 years on PG&E's high-pressure natural gas pipeline. I have personally been involved in a number of pipeline breaks, some of them resulting in fires. My experience includes a lot of emergency response. I don't want to pretend that I was in charge of it all, but I was involved in many, many events. And I just want to go on record. I want to say for myself, because of my own background, I find Mr. Sauer's report to be both credible and commendable. PG&E has enormous resources, and you guys have done a fantastic job under extremely difficult circumstances. And I'm in a position to know. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
I came over when it was announced on the radio that that we had a major pipe leak break, and I've had some experience with these things too. And when I came in, I didn't want to be a pest, so I more or less snuck in the back door. And what I saw was Susan, the assistant general manager, sitting at one of the tables, which were set up out here, and she was face to face with Randy Mays, who is our director of water resources and operations, with papers scattered out in front of them, trying to figure out what was going on, what they were going to do, and all that stuff. What they were going to do next. Keith, our graphical information systems person, who was seated over there next to the microphone, he was in his office over there going crazy on his computer, trying to deal with our engineers, which are down below or in San Diego or someplace like that. Working, I think, partially with a piece of, or with a document that we already agreed to renew and replace just the week before, because as I said up here, it was essentially worthless at the time. And fortunately, Susan, she came in, she heard my voice apparently in Keith's office, which is just next to this room here. And she was perfectly willing to answer my questions, which I urged her not to take me into account. Even though I'm a director, I'm familiar with when official people start showing up at major events and how distracting they can potentially be. I didn't want to bother her, but she did substantially answer my question, which was, "Is anybody hurt?" And she said no. So I went out there and eventually found the scene of all of this. I didn't go exactly to where the pipe broke, because by then it was already the hole was already filled in. However, when I got there, what I did was I kind of followed the cars, and one of them had Sarah in it, our human resources person, along with Beverly, who's seated in the back here, our executive secretary. And there are, as far as I can understand, they were delivering food to the people out there, which does mean, by the way, that at the time our human resources person and our executive secretary possibly should be in the office doing what they are assigned to do. It was necessary for them to go out and carry food to people who had been out in the field for 16, 18, whatever hours it was at the time. It was certainly all night. But I also saw out there, pardon me for speaking for so long, I saw Marina West out there, who's the general manager of the Bighorn Water District, and possibly something else too. And at her side was, I believe his name was David, which is, I don't know what his title was. He's from Bighorn also, but he was a senior, their senior field person out there. But at her right hand was Randy Little, the person who had the surgery and all that other kind of stuff. He seemed to be there without any complaint whatsoever from all that, but he was a little quiet. And they were conferring heavily. I tend to think, from what I saw, that Marina West had a key part in all this. She was, you might say, I would assume, the field commander out there during this incident, while we had Susan, our assistant, Susan Greer, our assistant to general manager, in charge of all of the activities that were taking place in this building. This was all very impressive to me. What I saw too was excellent communication out there between all of these people. It was somewhat spread out. There's places where there was the leak, that was an obvious place, but there's also breather devices here and there. And when this pipe had to be refilled, these breather devices were evacuating air. And these things had to be monitored, which caused Marina West from Bighorn to do a lot of standing around out there. It was, I might note, it was so hostile out there, the environment was so hostile. It was over 100 degrees by my estimation. But she was pouring water from her water bottle over her head to stay cool out there. So I would appreciate if the board would consider sending some sort of a notice in addition to any charges or payments that they might send over. Some sort of a note of appreciation to Marina, who seemed to be sort of, from my perspective at least, in the center of what the communications that were taking place. Trucks would come in from some of the remote places. They'd yell things out the window, and she would yell things back. And but it went, I think, as well as can be expected. And what I kind of noticed as a novice to all this stuff, Johnny Painter here would know a lot more about this than I do, but you got to noodle all this stuff when it's happening, because you can't see any of this. It's all under the ground or in a Carson box some places, which is the green, it used to be the standard green box with these valves and devices in it. These things are somewhat spread around in that area over there, so there's a lot of driving and all of that has to take place to do communications, because I think there was some radio communication, but it was also a verbal face-to-face thing too. But some of it you just have to figure out where all this stuff is. We've already heard that there's a secondary pipe in the ground right alongside this monster pipe that we had, or an 8-incher. Then we had to be careful that the exhausted guy on the tractor didn't crack that other pipe and potentially make the situation worse. What I saw, what I was kind of curious about, and that we might want to consider, is some sort of a relief station, a trailer of some kind. The CERT team has one there, the Civilian Emergency Response Team, or County Emergency Response Team, whatever their name is. I talked about this to one of their members, and I'm at risk of being drafted into that group in some capacity. Apparently Joshua Tree's chapter is dying on the vine, but some sort of a relief station that can be brought out into the field, into this hostile environment, this lunar-like environment that we live in here. Some sort of, I understand it was mentioned in passing someplace that we do have some capacity to fill people's jugs in the field someplace, but I think maybe we should review that and see if in reality it will work effectively to prevent riotous fighting situations amongst people queuing up at a water outlet that's too small to accommodate all of the folks. For Kathleen, maybe something about promoting some sort of once we establish how this water would be delivered to people from a well or remote site someplace, what kind of a jug people should have to efficiently fill the damn thing, pardon me. So in other words, we don't have people with their cereal bowl or their little milk jug with the 1-inch opening in it and taking up a lot of time when we have potentially hundreds of people in line waiting to fill jugs, if 40% of our customers conceivably could be without water. And also, we're aware that whenever there's excessive heat and emergencies or electrical outages and such, that a cooling station is opened over here at the Sportsman's Park. A suggestion would be, if we don't know already, some sort of a contact person and who has the authority to open that. in case there is a coincidental power outage, along with a water thing. The water, by the way, that does feed our swamp coolers, which is the coin of the realm out here when it comes to cooling. So it may be necessary to open a cooling station, because this did go on for quite a while. Thank you for your time, Madam President.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
So, Madam President,
Yes, sir.
Susan and I were talking earlier, and I forgot to mention it. I'm assuming that the board will agree and doesn't have to take an action, but I'm proposing that we draft a letter for the board president's signature, thanking both to the boards of Bighorn and 29 Palms for their response and their availability to respond. And we were close to working to see if High Desert would also participate. I'm sure they would have, but because the leak held, we were okay. So I'll put that letter together for your signatures. And next week, just so happens that we scheduled over a month ago a emergency response training program for just Joshua Basin personnel, and the scenario will be such that there's inadequate water supply. And we'll be talking about the hauling station, and we're already in the process of designing and fabricating a tank that would have 17 spigots on it. But there's much more to it than that. There's discussion today about various water bottling companies that in the past, in proximity here in Barstow for one of them, they were contacted and they simply loaded up 2 semi-trucks of pallets of water and delivered it for free. So working with the Office of Emergency Services and the other water districts, we're improving our response. And our response to this and other recent events throughout the Morongo Basin is a good sight better than it was 25 years ago when the Landers earthquake responded. So we're getting there.
Yeah, remember it well. Very good. So if there's nothing else on this, great job, and we'll move to the district council report.
Very briefly, Madam Chairman, as you probably are well aware of, the district is always getting, very frequently getting public records requests. And every time one comes in, it usually requires considerable staff time, especially if it's pre-litigation. You know, litigation attorneys typically like to use the Public Records Act as a means of getting free information outside the discovery process. And I'm talking to staff primarily. Good news is on the horizon. There's a lot of things happening in Sacramento. One thing the California Law Review Commission, on behalf of the request of the legislature, looking at the Brown Act, maybe the Public Records Act, got Brown Act on the line, and they're going to completely rewrite the whole thing. I brought it in here tonight. It's a book about this thick. And they're not going to add substantive changes. They're just going to add clarity to it and consistency and avoid redundance and put sections together that make sense to put them together, so you're not flopping and taking a lot of lawyers, staff, role. And that's good news. So there's a lot of happening in Sacramento, all for the betterment of local government. And they just announced it about a week ago that they're going to take that task in their hand. And what is the California Law Revision Commission? It's the scholars, it's law school professors that just volunteer their time. I don't believe they're even compensated. They might be, but I don't think so. And for the betterment of local government and state government. So they announced their intentions to do that. That's good news for lawyers and staff.
Thank you, sir. We'll move to item 13, General Manager's Report.
Okay, so Alex Handlers, who's our rate study consultant, is ready to come for an initial meeting with the board. His preferred date is September 12th. I'm recommending that we do September 12th. It's also an already scheduled regular meeting date for the Citizens Advisory Committee. So that's my proposal to the board. 4 of the 5 can make it if it's in the evening. Bob can't make it either on the 6th, and he thinks he may be able to make it on the 12th. Is that correct, Bob? Depending on scheduling. 6 o'clock in the evening is the time for the CAC meeting. So that'll, I mean, we've been emailing, I just want to sort of firm that up with you.
I'm easy.
There's not a CERT meeting that night, is there?
God, I hope not.
Okay, so just so you know, I think I already mentioned this last month, but the state is not appealing the Chrome 6 court ruling. They're estimating that it will take between 18 months and 24 months to come up with a new MCL for Chromium 6. We still have legislation that says we have to meet compliance by January of 2020, but I think everybody recognizes that you can't comply with a non-existent MCL. We have plans in a pilot study in place. We're in the process of getting it reviewed by the Division of Drinking Water to do a bench study with no filtration. At the same time, the Coachella Valley Water District is in August going to proceed with their reduction coagulation and no filtration full-scale test. And the Division of Drinking Water's engineer that was at the last meeting we were at, Eugene, was very encouraging that water districts continue to investigate stannous chloride treatment procedures. The treatment methodology is promising, but it needs a lot of things looked at it. And so we will be continuing to work with Division of Finance on making sure that our grant funding and low-interest loan, or no-interest loan, is still available. And it's in a state of flux, but there's a little bit less pressure, well, there's quite a bit less pressure to get it done by January 2020. I met with, I didn't bring the document with me, Tom McCarthy, the new general manager from the Mojave Water Agency, was on a meet and greet tour. We've already met and talked, but he came down to meet with me and see the district offices and get a feeling for what our issues were, what our challenges are. And he went over to High Desert, and we spent a good 45 minutes with him giving me an overview of the California water fix, which is the 2 tunnels being proposed. Mojave Water Agency's Board of Directors will be dealing with decisions that are going to need to be made between October and 2019. And so I just wanted to mention to the board directors that don't be surprised when you go to the MWA board meeting that this California water fix thing is on their agenda. And when they get to a point where Tom has something to brief, he's willing to come down and brief the board and the public. And when I get a better understanding of everything, I'll brief you a little bit further. We have a draft staffing study request for proposal almost ready to go. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's ready to share with the board. And then we're ready to go out. We will be ready to go out with requests for proposals, and then I'll have to come back to the board with a report on who bid on it and what the costs are, and get approval from the board to proceed with that. I just want to share that draft with you so that you can comment on it. I don't want to write a request for proposal by committee, but I think it'd be a good first step to let the board make some comments on it. And Susan and Beverly apparently, after the spill, came up with some other things to do or something. Susan's research and Beverly's findings, when we did this capital improvement plan and we brought it to you, We never technically accepted and filed and approved, et cetera. We had several discussions over the course of the next several months about doing a workshop. And so I'm going to propose that we do a workshop sometime in the next month or two to talk in more detail about the capital improvement plan. Perfect fit for the timing of the rate study, right? Perfect time to let the customers, attend and learn more about the CIP, et cetera. So that'll be coming up. And do we know that they were absent?
Yes.
Okay, well 14.
Never-ending story, yeah.
So we've done several things to remedy potential problems, and we treated the gravel pack and the annular space and the column with a different product, Steriline, which has a higher concentration of chlorine in it than New Water 10 and chlorine. And we let it sit for a couple of days. It had a chlorine residual. We then neutralized the chlorine in the well so that we could pump to the arroyo. We pumped the well, and then we tested it. I forget the dates. I don't have the well 14 book in front of me, but suffice it to say, on day 1, 2, 3, and 4, we tested 9 different times during the day, and the total coliform was absent. And the heterotrophic plate counts were within guidelines. On day 5, we got a present at 5 minutes, absent, absent, and a present at 1 hour, and then 4 absents, and that was on Sunday. So Tuesday, we didn't test on Monday. Tuesday, we tested again. They're all absent, and we don't have the HPC results back. So we are testing this week. We are hopeful that the 4 days of testing this week will all come back absent, and the HPCs are within guidance. And we've also set up a meeting for Monday with Tri-County, Dudex engineer, their field pump guy, their hydrologists, Randy, and the entire production staff, in case this testing comes back as present and fails for the next step. So that's where we are with well 14. We were so close. We're looking for 5 straight days, and we had 4. And then we got what could potentially be a false positive. So if the next several days are all absent, then we can assume it was a false positive. So that's where we are with well 14. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, sir. Oh, my gosh. All right. We'll move on to item number 14, Director reports on meetings attended, comments, and future agenda items. We'll just go down the line. Start with you, Director Unger.
Oh, I went to Mojave Water Agency on the 10th, and Kurt's right. Everyone who goes to Mojave for the next year and a half, probably, at least the next several months, will get an update on the water fix. But the meeting started with the graduation ceremony for the agency's ABCs of Water Academy. They had 30 enrollees last September, and 24 adults, children, ratepayers, water workers, retired folks, completed the 6-class course in July. The course covered water supply, water facilities, quality, technology, conservation. Board President Kimberly Cox, her name came up earlier, she commended them, saying, "We applaud your curiosity that brought you here." Board Treasurer Jim Ventura added, "You become our messengers." Director Thurston Smith told the 12-year-olds, "In 8 years, you can run for this office." And yes, there was cake. GM Tom McCarthy, he led the workshop on the $15 billion water fix plan. It was introduced by the governor and proposes construction of 2 tunnels to transport water 30 miles south from the Bay Delta to the State Water Project and Central Valley pumping stations. And this is to replace the former peripheral canal plan from many years ago that would do the same thing to move the Bay Delta water. This is considered to be much more environmentally safe, especially for the protected aquatic species. The tunnels will be 150 feet below grade, have 40-foot internal diameter, including a 2-foot thick concrete liner. There will be 3 intake structures into the tunnels, and these will also be below the delta and not impact water quality or aquatic habitats. And in fact, the intake flow velocity will be very, very low, 0.2 foot per second, and a very fine mesh fish screens will be used to reduce any fish impacts during flow periods, and is being designed to reduce reverse flows, which will result in less fish salvage at the pumps. Agency Finance Officer Kathy Kortner discussed the finances of the project, which will necessitate a joint powers authority. The JPA would be its own public agency with its own project management and program director. It would use what they call adaptive management practices. It would be an approach that would be coordinating with interagency groups composed of Department of Water Resources, Bureau of Reclamation, United States Fish and Wildlife Services, and others. Kortner said that good science is going to be used. She says water allotments have to be calculated, and that at the August 24th Mojave Water meeting, they will focus on different financing mechanisms. Right now, she says the agency has quite a bit of water to last to 2060 because of conservation, and she thought it was possible to get the project cost down under $13 billion. And I would like to say,
Yeah.
I think I'd like to second suggestions from Director Flowen. I think that trailer, like the CERT trailer, is a good idea. This has happened before, and those poor people out in the field, it's terrible. And you saw where they were out there. That's really no man's land out there. And I fully agree, Kurt, the board needs to thank our fellow agencies that helped us. And I hope we can do something really nice for our own agency people who spent so much time out there, maybe an extra day off or something we can give them to add in thanks. I mean, they really deserve it. And I can't imagine how this could have handled in any better way. We have a fantastic staff here, absolutely. Our crew and our staff are just stellar. And yeah, Marina West was once the operations manager over here, so yeah. She knows her way around Joshua Basin. And thank you, Kurt. That was a great report. Thank you so much. I was in here and there was cases of water stacked, and it was really quite a deal. So thank the staff very much, and our fellow water agencies that bailed us out. Sorry, bad pun. But thank you.
They did very well.
They did, Kurt. They did fantastic.
Still on item 14.
Yes,
Yep.
Director report. Okay. Director Hunt.
Real quickly, I wanted to also compliment all of you. It was just a phenomenal response. I was blown away by it. Susan, in addition to everything else she was doing, took the time out to brief directors, including myself, and President Luckman briefed me as well, and I couldn't imagine a better response to an incident than that, a more professional one, a more organized. It was just amazing. And I also wanted to mention the CERT trailer thing. My brother-in-law, who served on volunteer fire departments for many years, is now staffs a trailer like that for exhausted firefighters. And it'd be interesting to find out if there's even a trailer that, facility that could be made available, when there is an incident like this that could possibly be a shared resource. So that's it.
Thank you. Director Plum.
I too visited the Mojave Water Agency. My time was the 27th of last month. Just as a point of information, they have their region of responsibility divided into districts, and they actually have 7 districts, and then they each have a director there. Our guy is Mr. Jim Ventura. We're in Division 2. And I was able to spend about 20 or 25 minutes. It's so far away, you have to allow time for travel, and if you get there on time, you got this period of time before the meeting starts. I spent 20 or 25 minutes with him this time talking about a range of things. But he, I got to tell you, he is a great man. He is very personable, long-term experience on water stuff. He lives around these parts somewhere, and he actually participated in things here during a more turbulent time in the district's history.
Another pun.
He was on the board here.
Yeah, he was on the board when I was hired.
He's very helpful, and he's very interested in our area, even though his area, I must say, is by far the largest of all of them. It's huge. I think he's got the area that's least populated, and so it's geographically quite large, but he's there for us.
Yep.
Definitely.
Great guy.
That's all.
Great guy.
And I went to the Technical Advisory Committee meeting, which was a tour of the transition zone of the Mojave River, which was fascinating. Fraser Haney from the Mojave Desert Land Trust went with me. It turns out that the land that we went to see is land that they are trying to purchase, or they're trying to take over from another nonprofit that has it. And it's just, it was a fascinating day to be tromping around. It wasn't terribly hot, but it was a very, very neat trip. Enjoyed it a lot. Okay, future director meetings and training opportunities. The Mojave Board meeting on the 24th. Oh, Kathleen. Kathleen, I've skipped you twice now.
No,
You're going to put up a flare.
that's okay. No, I do have something to share. I wish to add to Kurt's report just briefly. He covered a lot of my information. I do want to point out to the board, we have a newer population that comes from megatropolis. They're very tuned into technology, whereby we as a rural community have not gone down that road for many years. I won't even say we're catching up, but we are getting wired. I mean, when I moved out here from the city that had a lot of stuff, I went onto a party line, which I didn't even know what that was. So, I mean, there's still a huge gap in a cultural shock when people move out here, which we have seen a huge influx. And unfortunately, with future disasters, what I am hearing is they don't just want to be notified, they want it now. And they don't understand that we have not the capital invested into technology the way the great cities do. We don't have, I mean, look what it took just for the county. They had a great phone system, they just hadn't done it for our area. It took them 4 hours to make it happen. That's certainly not instant. People want it right away on their phone. They want everything now. And unfortunately, like Kurt's first slide, they're not going to make it easy for us either. So as you are out and about in town and hearing the flack, understand that communications go both ways. Our community has to work with us. They have to, because we are not the big city, and we are trying to expand and move forward. But as you look at our future budgets and what have you, communication, technology, it all costs. It costs money to buy that type of equipment that can respond immediately, and it takes personnel to staff, man it, and maintain it at all times, to add those new phone numbers every time someone changes their phone number, things like that. But people just don't understand what goes into communications. And again, to the rest of the staff, everyone worked hard with what we had. We used everything at our disposal, including knocking on doors. So I wanted to just point that out, and if you have any great ideas on how to get that message out to our new transplanted community from Megatropolis, I'm open ears. The other thing is, on the plus side, our small little Facebook page where we only push out information, and we average about 200 activity routinely. It went into the 5,000 range. How many
Sure did.
hits we had over that weekend was over 5,000. So it is not that it was the only way we communicated, but it's certainly a source that we must always keep and keep active and know that people do go to it. Not everyone, though, because we have those who would never do Facebook. So we just keep it in mind, what we normally get versus when people went to it because they now had a need. We were there, we had a presence. So I want to go way back to when President Luckman pushed that we open up a Facebook page. And now it paid off, because that's where a lot of people disgruntled said, well, I heard it on Facebook, but I should have had a personal phone call. Things like that, you know. So it is good that we are doing some of this advanced technology, advanced Facebook, social media, but keep that in mind as you're working, please, to see our future as a water district. Also moving on, the summer wildcrafting class, we're getting ready for session 4, which is the tour of the national park. It is open to any former students, and we're adding on a workshop after the tour to learn actually the process of working with the native plant seedlings and planting them and how the park does it. So that's new. We'll be adding that in on the date of September 7th when we go in. And if anyone needs more information, have them call the office and leave a message for myself. The other item is the Water School 101 is online. People are starting to take the class. They are actually all passing the class. This is good. So we are having people also call to sign up to take the class here. And so I will give you more on how that progresses. But so far it's been very positive. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathleen. Great. Okay, now I will go to item number 15. Kathleen, you're going to have to stand up and wave your arms if I ever forget you again. Hopefully I won't. And I'd like to go on and say one more thing, and I think Kurt said this. People wanted phone calls, but there are so very high percentage of people who will not give us their phone numbers. Yeah. We can't have their phone numbers, but you were supposed to call me. So it's a can't-win situation, and it's very frustrating for everyone. Okay, future director meetings and training opportunities. The Mojave Board meeting on the 24th is me. The Finance Committee will meet on the 28th. That is Vice President Johnson and Director Flown. Water Resources and Operations meets right after it. That is me and Vice President Johnson. And then the Technical Advisory Committee for the Mojave Water Agency is October 5th. That's always a very interesting, I've been going to those since I've been on this board, and it's always quite an interesting meeting. It is designed much more for staff than board members because it really does get pretty into stuff. But
where's it going to be?
It's at Mojave. And it's in the morning, 10 a.m. So if you want to go, let me know. Okay, with that, if there's nothing else, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn in memory of Fred Clintworth, who was a member of the Citizen Advisory Committee. He passed away recently from cancer. He'd been battling that for a very long time. And I think many of you know Fred. He was a fantastic man. So,
yeah, I'd like to just comment on that and just send out thoughts and prayers to the family. Fred passed away on August 8th. He was extremely involved in the community. He was on the CAC, as some of us knew. He was part of Friends to the Library here in JT, if I'm not mistaken. Fellow member of VFW and a retired Marine. And we want to say simplify. And thank you, Fred.
Very good. So with that, unless I hear any objections, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for being here.